Hey, this is Leif Gamford. I played the cash register thief in The Amazing Spider-Man, and you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, this is Rich McDonald, and I play Commander David Mason on Call of Duty Black Ops 2. You're listening to Everything Geek podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldavar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek Podcast.
Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek Podcast.
Hey, it's James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Plo Koon in Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Everything Geek, the podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek podcast.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host Ruari, and joining me is co-host Al.
Hello everyone.
And also joining us today is a very special guest. We have actor Chris Harrelson, who is best known for playing a food bank warder walker, Napalm Walker, Terminus Walker, and Wet and Wild Walker in The Walking Dead. So how are you today, Chris?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me, guys.
It's a pleasure to have you join us on the podcast.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. This should be a lot of fun. This is actually the first podcast I've done related to my work on The Walking Dead, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, so let's make sure it's the best. After all, first and best. That would be a nice ring to it.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and get the best one out of the way so that we'll set the bar super high and never reach it ever again.
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan. I like your thinking. So getting right into the questions, Chris, my first question for you is, how did you decide you wanted to become an actor?
Well, that's sort of a two-part answer, if you'll indulge me. I originally had been an actor all throughout high school. So the entirety of my 4 years in high school, I was in probably 20 productions in my high school theater from 1994 to 1998. But when I graduated high school, there were no real acting opportunities in Atlanta. You either had to move to LA to try to get into, Hollywood films and TV shows, or move to New York and try to go the theater route. But I was 17 years old and not really ready to leave home. So that just kind of, I never pursued it. Fast forward to almost 1 year ago, in February of last year, Aaron Paul, who plays Jesse on Breaking Bad. I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with him. He was in Atlanta promoting Need for Speed, and he had a Twitter scavenger hunt where throughout the day he listed 3 separate items that he wanted people to find and then bring to him at an undisclosed location that night. Well, I participated in the scavenger hunt, showed up that night, and narrowly lost out to another person, but I still won free tickets to the Need for Speed world premiere at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood. So that was pretty neat. I flew out there with a buddy, went to the premiere, got to hang out at the after party with Aaron Paul and Kid Cudi and, the other people from the movie. And then afterwards, we were driving back to my brother-in-law's house in North LA, and I told my friend, hey, I think when we get back to Atlanta, I'm going to start doing some work on TV shows and movies. And And he was like, oh, just like that, when we get home, you're just going to, be in movies and stuff. And I said, yeah, I think so. So we flew home, a few days later, and a week after we got home, I had booked my first gig as an extra on a movie with Vince Vaughn that hasn't come out yet, and it's called Term Life. So basically, that was it. That experience, I kind of saw how, I was a part of an event, and then I thought, you know what, I think I kind of like this environment. I want to do more of it. So we came home, and I started pursuing it, and a week later, I was on set.
It's very nice. It's a great connection, of course, a great geek connection with the Breaking Bad. And Aaron Paul, that is very nice, very interesting story.
Put it all to Aaron Paul, like 100%. If he hadn't done that little contest here, if I hadn't gotten involved in that and, had that experience, I don't think I would have pursued it. So none of this would have happened.
Definitely, that's great. My second question is, how did you initially get cast as a walker in The Walking Dead? Did you have to go to zombie school?
I did get to go to zombie school, but this kind of actually goes back to the first question. So that first experience on that movie called Term Life, the casting company that booked me for that movie is the same casting company that handles the walkers on The Walking Dead. So off of my initial email inquiry about that first movie, they I guess they liked my body type from the pictures that I sent in. They need people who are tall and on the skinny side. So I think that initial email, they liked me. They liked my appearance. And then I worked on that show for a couple of days, and then on another show that they do called Rectify that's filmed here in Georgia. And so I got an email about 6 weeks after that first experience that said, hey, Chris, we really like the work that you've done on these other productions for us. We have another show that we're doing that's about to start up. We were wondering if you'd like to be on it, and it's called The Walking Dead. So I said, oh yeah, that sounds pretty neat. So yeah, I did end up going to zombie school. That was like basically the first step. You go there and kind of have a big group audition, and I guess I performed rather well at zombie school. So they invited me out for the first day of filming and made me what they call a hero walker, which is the ones that get the close-up shots and those types of things. And that was it. I mean, from the very beginning, it all moved very, very quickly.
It's very impressive, very nice. My third question is, out of all the walkers you have played on The Walking Dead so far, which took the longest to have the makeup put on for?
The Napalm Walker, for sure. That was about 3 hours actually in the makeup chair, and then probably another hour on set, actually getting in the positioning, and then them, bringing in extra prosthetics and the KY jelly, which made it gave it the shine to it, and the charred ash and all that stuff, which was rather uncomfortable. But that one all pieced together was about 4 hours.
That is quite a long time. I'm not surprised that was the longest one. I mean, that was a very interesting walker, that's for sure.
Yeah, those types of scenes, the ones that they don't do all the time, they tend to take longer because there are generally more actual pieces involved. Plus, it's not something that they do every day. So even the work that they do on what I call the normal walkers, while it's fantastic, it's something that they do 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 times a week. So they've got a system down for it. With the specialty scenes like the Napalm Walker and the Food Bank Water Walker, it's different. So they really take their time, and sometimes they're almost those scenes take longer for the makeup because they really are just kind of making things up as they go along. So it's a little bit of just kind of trying things out, positioning different things on you, and saying, okay, this looks right. We like this. So yeah, those types of scenes tend to take the longest. So out of all the episodes I've been on this year, yeah, that one was definitely the longest, the Napalm Walker.
Very nice, very interesting. My fourth question is, can you describe the makeup process for a walker on The Walking Dead from your perspective?
Sure. When well, it's normally okay, so I'll have to explain it in this sense. There are basically 3 different makeup processes that are used. There are 3 different types of walkers. There is a deep background walker, which generally doesn't get much makeup at all. It's the walkers that you see, just kind of wandering through the trees or something like that. But it's not really focused on their face, so they don't get much of a treatment. Then you have what are called mid-ground walkers. They are maybe in a pack, in a big herd, but they don't necessarily get a shot of their face up close. They're not really involved in a kill scene or anything like that. That process takes about 15 minutes or so, and it's generally a lot of airbrushing. Now we get to what are referred to as the hero walkers. Those are the walkers that you see the close-up shots. They might get killed by one of the main characters, or perform in a neat type of scene where the camera is actually focused on them. That process generally takes about an hour and a half. So when you're watching the show and you see a regular close-up shot of a zombie, and it's not it's not the food bank walker, the napalm walker, that takes about an hour and a half. And the way it basically breaks down is, and there are several actually great videos online that they kind of show the process if you want to seek them out, either on the AMC website, and I even know that MTV has done some really good behind the scenes kind of documentary type things on it. They did one while I was there this year. And it's kind of neat. It'll show you, take you inside the trailer and kind of break down the process for you. But for me, from my perspective, when you go into the trailer, you're in there for about an hour and a half. Generally, the first thing that is done is they will put a bald cap on you. They need to mat your hair down as close to the skin as they can. So they'll put a bald cap on and glue it around the edges of the face and the neckline. After that, generally comes the makeup mask. There are different pieces that they use. Like sometimes it'll be one actual big mask that fits over your entire face, and it has the foam teeth on it and everything. Other times they will use different pieces, like there might be a piece that covers your eyes, and then they use a separate nose piece and a chin piece, depending on the look that they're going for and depending on the actor. So the mask usually goes on after the hair, after they mat the hair down, put on the bald cap. The mask is basically held on with a really strong adhesive glue. So they paint your face basically in this white sort of glue, and then place the mask down on top and kind of gently press it down to make sure that it is firmly adhered to your face. Once the mask is on, they usually go over it with an airbrush. So the mask will be like a basic, a foam color, like an off-white, and then they'll go over it with a darker color to make it, almost look like sort of a skin tone color. And then they'll go over that with black, red, and brown to make it look kind of like blood or dirt or those types of things. And they'll do that on top of the mask, on your neck, kind of on the top of the chest, if you're going to see that through the shirt, and on the bottom halves of your arms. Generally don't go above the elbows because you're always wearing a shirt and you're always wearing long pants, so they pretty much don't have to worry about your legs. But yeah, it takes about an hour and a half to do all that. After they do the airbrushing, that's when they go through with like a paintbrush and do kind of little fine details if they want. If they want to add some specific blood onto like an open wound or something like that, or if they have a gash piece on your neck or your head or something, they'll go in with the regular paintbrush and do the little fine things that they need to after the airbrushing. But that's pretty much how the process goes. And for the most part of it, we're sitting there in the trailer and listening to good classic rock and talking about old horror movies and joking around and, kind of just hanging out.
That's great. That was a very in-depth description. Yeah, you must have a really good memory if you remembered all that.
Well, I've been through it a few times. So the first couple of times, everything was just kind of, brand new and just coming at you really fast. But after you do it a few times, you get kind of comfortable in the situation, and you kind of know what to expect, what's coming up next. So it's nice that they have sort of a routine that you get sort of used to after a while.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds great. My fifth question is, which are your favorites out of the walkers you have played so far?
I mean, I guess the Napalm Walker is my actual favorite walker that I've played because it's fairly memorable. Most people who see that picture are like, oh my gosh, that was, you were in that scene. So it's one that people immediately recognize. Not to say that that was like my favorite day on set or my favorite scene to shoot specifically, but as far as the walkers that I've portrayed, yeah, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to beat that. I mean, I haven't had any, I wasn't. This is my first, season on the show, so I can't say that I was the walker that bit Dale or that got Lori or anything like that. I haven't haven't had those experiences on the first 4 seasons of this show. So up to what we've seen thus far, definitely the Napalm Walker.
That's great. I would definitely have to agree. It was a very interesting and unique walk. I mean, it's just such an interesting scene as well, just seeing the effects on the walkers after what happened.
It was, and I had no idea that we were doing it that day. I didn't know what to expect with the water walker scene, the food bank. I actually knew what that was because I was the walker makeup test subject for that. So I went in on one of my days off, and the makeup guys used me as basically their test dummy to try out the look that they were going for. When I showed up for the napalm scene, I just thought I was there for a regular day of work, and one of my buddies was on set, and he said, "Oh man, you don't know what we're doing today?" And I said, "No, man, what are we doing?" And they told me, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds pretty rad." And yeah, so it was a surprise to me that's what we were doing that day, but it was pretty neat.
Definitely. My final question for you, Chris, is: do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects you would like to talk about?
I don't have any upcoming acting roles. When I started pursuing it last year, it was mainly honestly, it was kind of like a stopgap and a thing to do in some free time. My full-time job was going into our slow period of the year for about 3 or 4 months. So I said, well, we have all of these productions in town. Let me see if I can do those for a little while to, just make up the difference until we're back into our busy season. So I did a lot of work on a ton of other TV shows and movies, but when I started working on The Walking Dead, the experience on that show kind of blew everything else away. So I wasn't really interested in doing what I had been doing before. And at the same time, I got a different full-time job. So once that happened, Walking Dead was something that I had to fit into my schedule. Like when they wanted me to come, be on the show, I had to manipulate my full-time job in order to be able to do it. So it was kind of like, it wasn't really something that I considered making a big career move into, but it was something that worked at the time, and I kind of fell into The Walking Dead. That had never been a goal or an intention of mine. But coming up, I do have the opportunity to appear at a lot of different conventions. So I've already booked 10 appearances throughout the rest of this year, with many more to come. So that's going to be a lot of my focus right now, is going to be traveling around, meeting fans in different cities, doing like autograph signings at different shows and things like that. And if that leads to other opportunities, if I meet people at conventions like agents or other actors or something, and there are other projects that are presented, or that I start talking to people about, that sounds awesome, and I'd love to get involved with those types of things. But right now, it's not something I'm actively pursuing. I've got 2 young children. We have a mortgage and those types of things. So I can't really be out there necessarily chasing dreams right now. But the convention appearances are kind of going to be able to supplant my full-time work a good bit. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
That's great, and I'm sure lots of people are very excited to meet you at conventions, and hopefully you can cross the pond at some point, as they say.
I'm trying very hard to do that, sir. I would love to. That's definitely on top of my to-do list.
That's great, so hopefully we'll see you at a convention over here at some point. So, thank you very much, Chris, for answering all of my questions. I'll let my co-host Al ask his now.
All right, thanks, Ruari.
Thanks, Chris. I just got a few questions. I mean, has there been any? I mean, in The Walking Dead, have there been any bizarre roles or something as different as the Napalm Walker that you've had?
That was the most different, I can say for sure. Because I think there were 5 of us involved in that scene, and three of us had worked very heavily on the show this season. We were involved in the food bank walker scene. We were all three involved in the season premiere. So that was one that we kind of all looked at each other like, wow, what have we gotten ourselves into? Like, this is completely different than anything else we've done. Not only was the makeup different, but not a big part of being a walker is the walk that you give. It has to look right and it has to be believable on camera. But in this scene, we were melted to the pavement. So it was an entirely different day on set than anything else we had been through before. The water walker scene was also very different because, we were in a tank of water instead of shuffling down a street or, strolling through the woods or something. So that presented its own challenges in the way of filming. But the actual scene itself and the walker that we portrayed, Napalm Walker is definitely the strangest and the oddest and the coolest.
Definitely was the coolest. I mean, it's so memorable, Napalm Walker. You did an awesome job on that.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I know you mentioned you gave us sort of in-depth view in the makeup and everything. It'll be great. I mean, do you have anything interesting to tell us? Any other sort of backstage insight to the makeup process?
Well, as far as the actual process goes, they're always constantly doing touch-ups on set. That's one of the big things. They're constantly taking pictures of us after the cameras stop filming on a scene, because if we have to come back to that scene later, everything has to match up exactly. So every time you're walking off set, there's someone there ready to take your picture, and you hold up a little card with your name on it and the date, so that they can go through, and even in editing, they might have to go through and look at a scene and say, wait, he doesn't look right in this scene, but it's only 30 seconds after this one. They may have been filmed 8 hours apart in the day, so something may have changed. So they're really big on consistency. Even the coloring of your teeth, the blackness on your teeth, like as I mentioned before, the open wounds and stuff like that. If you have any like blood on you, they always have to come back through and retouch those before we start filming again, because everything always has to look consistent. So it's a lot different being on that set than on other sets that I've been on. You might have one or two makeup people that are attending to an entire group of people that are there, but when you're on set for The Walking Dead, each walker basically kind of has, you have your makeup artist that did you, and they're always watching over you to make sure that, nothing changes. And if it does, they have to fix it. So you're constantly being tended to. And it's pretty neat.
All business.
Always. Yeah. But the makeup guys and girls are the coolest people in the world. I'm so glad to have been able to work with them. A lot of the work on The Walking Dead is physically taxing. A lot of it is just kind of stressful when I'd have to wake up at 3 a.m. to drive an hour and a half to be at a set at 5 a.m. so that we could begin filming as soon as the sun goes up. Those are things that are, throw a kink in your life. But the makeup guys, they're just fantastic people. They're really big fans of old horror movies. And I've actually, on the Napalm Walker scene, this is kind of a funny story. When I was younger, my favorite horror movie when I was a kid, and even today, is Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. I love that movie. And as I was laying in the hole for the Napalm Walker scene, I was talking to the makeup artist who performed my work that day, and he told me that he did Freddy's makeup in that movie. So I'm like laying there in this hole with this crazy makeup on, and I'm like, wait a minute, my favorite movie 25 years ago, the guy who did the makeup in that movie has done my makeup on set today, right now, while I'm laying in this hole. And it just kind of like blew a huge hole in my mind. It was like my whole universe just shattered, and I was like, this can't be reality. But that's a pretty neat little connection. That made me really happy that day.
That sounds amazing. Like the caliber of the makeup artists are there. Even from the Nightmare on Elm Street, the guys that are working on there. Because I remember that was pretty neat over there, and it still holds up. The makeup.
They've done so. That makeup company has done. I mean, they did the work for the recent Oz the Great and Powerful. They did work on the Hitchcock movie with Anthony Hopkins. So they do a lot of horror related work, but it's all just fantastic. When I was in LA, I actually, this last summer, I was given the opportunity to take a private tour of their makeup studio. So they make all the makeup and the prosthetics out in Los Angeles, and they ship it here for use on the production. So I was actually able to take a tour of the office, and it was just amazing to see what they've done and what they continue to do.
And what they will bring to us in the future as well. For that Napalm Walker, I mean, that was pretty striking. Was there? I mean, what was the sort of the environment like? Was everyone sort of excited to see what you were gonna do, or how it's gonna look? I mean,
They were. I obviously the cast knew what they were filming that day. They knew. They read the scenes in advance, so they knew that there were going to be walkers melted into the pavement. But when they came on set, at the very beginning, because we were on set first doing our positioning and things like that, and when the actors came onto set, the looks on their faces, they were all like little kids, just like looking at a new toy or something like that. They were just, it was almost like shock and surprise. They couldn't believe like the makeup work, and it was amazing. I remember Norman Reedus actually got out his personal camera and was taking pictures of a couple of us that were like posing for him, and they were just like, "This is great! I can't believe it." So it was a really fun day because it was something new and it was exciting, and the cast, they do this all the time. They work with different walkers every single day. They're always stabbing walkers in the head or shooting them or, pushing them off or something like that. So it's neat for them when they get to do something that's, a little bit different. So that was just that was a really fun day on set. And there were a lot of the cast members there. You had Rick and Daryl were in that scene. Tyree, just a ton of them, almost everybody, So it was a fun atmosphere. It was really, it was physically uncomfortable and very taxing, but it was really neat to be a part of it. Everyone was in a great mood, and it was just a fun day.
a true hero walker day, right?
It really was. It was pretty neat. It was just one of those days where usually, like I said, the cast is just used to it. They're used to the walkers, but it was one of those days that anytime you were, if you were walking to get a drink or to, use the restroom or something like that, like eyes were on you. People were just staring at you all day. Like, I can't believe what I'm looking at right now. It's so weird. And it really was weird because, and we were half zombified since we were laying in the hole. The bottom half of us had nothing to do with zombies. So I was wearing my own jeans, like my Nike Air Max sneakers. So I'm walking around the top half of me looking, all pretty gross and melty and stuff like that. But, the bottom half of me is just wearing my normal jeans and sneakers. And it was a kind of an odd look, I'm sure.
Wow. My final question is, I think you were in the Terminus episode, well, the Attack on Terminus episode, the sort of first episode of the season.
Yes,
of
sir.
the break. Is there anything interesting you could tell us on that day? Because that was pretty much my favorite episode of the season, and it would be great to sort of get some insight to what was going on back then.
Well, I was fortunate enough to work on the Terminus set. I want to say like either 3 or 4 days out of that first episode. So the first day of filming that I did this year was the scene with Carol and Tyrese and Judith on the train tracks at the beginning of 501, where they hear the gunshots and then they head off down the track and the walkers start to follow them. So that was my actual first day on set. My second day on set, we went to Terminus. And at that point, I didn't even watch the show until I was booked to work on it. When I got that email for Zombie School, I said, "Oh, that sounds great. I should probably know what I'm getting into." So when I went to Terminus, I think I was only like halfway through watching season 4 at that point. So I didn't even know what Terminus was. I was like, why are we here? What's happening right now? Like, I had just watched the Herschel episode. So I didn't really know what was happening. But I think I worked 3 days on that actual set, because for the season premiere, they take extra days to film. A normal episode, they'll use 8 filming days. A season premiere, they can go longer because they can start early. They can start as early as they want to. So they can do 2 or 3 full weeks of filming if they like, and pick and choose what they actually want to put into the show. So they did a lot of extra filming for that. So normally you'll work about, once you've performed on an episode 1 day as a walker, they usually don't reuse you in that same episode, unless there's like an emergency, if somebody, has a cancellation or something like that. But at Terminus, it was kind of like all hands on deck. And I think that was sort of our audition too. It was the first episode, so they were looking at a lot of us walkers, and determining whether they wanted to use us later in the season, if they wanted to put us in the hero category or whatever. So that entire time on set, I had heightened attention at all times. I knew that people were looking at us. I knew that the way that I performed those few days on that set might well determine how the rest of the season went for me. So while there were a couple of days where there were big crews of walkers on set, maybe 50 or 60 of us. And you'll have a good portion that, during downtime, they'll be playing games, playing card games, running around, goofing off and stuff. But I was pretty much always positioned so that I was in view of people who were paying attention to what was going on the set. So like production assistants, those types of people who will come in and say, okay, we need a hero walker for a scene. Like I was pretty much always ready to jump at the opportunity. And that paid off. One time there was a scene where one of the Terminus residents was getting his arm bitten. And I guess the walker who was performing that scene couldn't get it right for like 2 or 3 takes. So they came in looking for someone else, and I just jumped at the opportunity, and they were like, oh yeah, Chris, you did a good job earlier. Let's use you. They ended up cutting the scene from the episode, but I nailed it on the first take. And that was directed by Greg Nicotero, who is, one of the executive producers, and I had met him at Zombie School. So I think that my readiness and my willingness to just like jump into it kind of caught the eye of certain people there and really paid off for me down the line. So the makeup guys, I made sure that I was friendly to them immediately, when I met them on set, because you work with them a lot. So I wanted to make sure they got on their, good side. Plus they were really cool people. But basically that whole time that we were at Terminus was just me going, okay, Chris, this is your shot. This is how you're going to, if you're going to be here the rest of the year, you got to do it now. And I think I did pretty well. I got to do the scene where Carl swung me into Michonne and she stabbed me with her sword. So that was my first like kill on set. That was really cool. And I got to, meet everyone there. I got to meet all of the actors because everyone was in Terminus at the beginning of the season. So it was a really fun experience. And I made a lot of friends there too. I made friends, became friends with other walkers that I'm still friends with today. We talk all the time, hang out on Facebook and even do the convention appearances and stuff together. So it was a really good learning experience and bonding experience. But it was just, for me, it was all about, okay, you have to do this right. You got to get it right here because you want them to keep calling you back. And, they have been calling me back. So I guess that strategy worked out.
Yep, hard work definitely pays off. Yeah, that's all my questions. Thank you so much, Chris.
Oh, you're
Let's
welcome.
pass
Thanks,
it
Al.
over to Rory.
Yep. So, Chris, I know you yourself are a big comic, TV, and film geek in general. So, do you want to talk to us a little bit about that? How you became a fan?
How I became like a comic book fan and like that type of thing.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I can remember, I grew up, I was born in 81. So that was in my opinion, the 80s was like the heightened golden age of like cartoons, like superheroes and those types of things. You had Thundercats on television, G.I. Joes, Transformers. But my favorite show growing up was Super Friends. So every day I was watching Superman, Batman, Aquaman, and my first comic book experience was I bought an Archie comic in the checkout line at a grocery store when I was like 5 years old, I think. And I was reading the Archie comics, and I remember I'd been watching Superman and stuff on TV, and I was like, wait, don't they make Superman comics? So for Christmas, my dad got me a big jumbo box of comics from like Sam's Club, I think. And it had like 50 random comics in there, but it was Marvel and DC. So you had X-Men, X-Force, actually some cool ones, like I think some old He-Man comics that I think used to be Marvel back in the day. You had Superman, Green Lantern. So I was into comic books at least from the age of 5 on, and I really never got out of it. I mean, I grew up watching the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. I remember seeing Batman, 1989 with Michael Keaton. I remember seeing that in the theater. I remember seeing Ninja Turtles in the theater. So it's just, yeah, I've been into it my whole life up until my daughter was born. Just the last couple of years, I had a pull list, a weekly pull list at the comic book shop for like 20 years almost. But unfortunately, with kids, there's just not a whole lot of time to sit around and read about Batman and Robin anymore, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, but it's still a pretty good way to get into books, you know.
Yeah, so my kids are definitely growing up that way. I mean, my daughter is 2, and she already has, Supergirl action figures, and my son has a Spider-Man piggy bank. His name is Luke. He's named after Luke Skywalker. So yeah, I'm kind of a nerd like that, and I'm definitely trying to pass that down to the next generation. I don't think it'll be hard though. So yeah, I mean, I'm a grown man. I'm 33 years old, and I play Lego Batman 3 on my PlayStation 4. Those are my favorite types of games. But yeah, just I'm really excited about all the new DC movies and the Marvel movies. Captain America 3 is filming in Atlanta starting in about 2 months. And the rumor is that the Pinewood Studios in Atlanta is now the home of Marvel movies for the next 5 years. So that's a rumor, but they did film Ant-Man there, and Captain America 3 is coming in a couple of months. So that rumor would seem to probably have some logical basis to it. So if that's the case, that's just really, really exciting. I mean, number one, it's just exciting for movie fans that these are happening. Because when I was a kid, I could never imagine a world where Captain America and Iron Man were in a movie together. That just is amazing. But that it's happening basically in my backyard, just miles down the street, is pretty amazing to me. So it's really, really exciting time to be around here. And I mean, if you're a movie fan, it's a great time to be in Atlanta, but especially if you're a fan of, those types of movies, then it's just, it doesn't get much better than what's going on right now.
Yeah, maybe you'll even get a small role in Captain America 3.
Oh,
Now
I
that
can
would be
almost
something.
guarantee I will get at least one day on set as an extra. Ant-Man just didn't work out because it didn't work out with my work schedule. It was during the Walking Dead filming, and it was just something that I could never really fit into my schedule at the time. But I will have a little bit more flexibility coming up in the future, and Captain America 3 will be such a much more large-scale production than Ant-Man. I mean, they will use it's going to film longer. They'll use much bigger sets and much bigger crowd pieces and stuff like that. So even if, I don't care if I'm never even seen on the screen, I just want to be on the set, a day or two for that. And, I've had pretty good success getting onto movies and stuff like that before. I've done Hunger Games 4, Taken 3, Selma. So I'm lucky that my body type fits well on camera. I'm not, I'm not so tall that I'm going to be like out of the frame or anything like that. They can kind of position me wherever they want me, and I'm not distracting, I guess. So I'm pretty fortunate in that sense, I guess. But yeah, man, that would just be the best thing in the world. Could you imagine being on set with Spider-Man and Iron Man and Captain America? I mean,
yes, I have a pretty big imagination.
Right on.
Yeah. So that's all of our questions for you today, Chris. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
Well, thanks very much for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I really appreciate it.
And hopefully we can talk to you again at some point.
I hope so. And, if anything comes up where I'll be traveling over your way, I will definitely be letting you know. Maybe we could do a special podcast broadcast or something like that on location. That would be pretty sweet.
That would be amazing. I would definitely be up for that. So we'll talk to you soon then. Bye.
All right. Thanks again, gentlemen. Take care.
Thanks again.
Okay, bye.
So make sure to check out our YouTube channels. The podcast is www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Mine is www.youtube.com/user/Separate Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/officialeverythinggeekpodcast. Email us below email everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out Al's Twitter, twitter.com/shikawandu. Check out Chris Harrelson's Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Chris Harrelson ATL, and check out Channel 1 on Create where we broadcast live from www.channel1create.com. So geeks out, everyone.